In a classroom where chaos reigns, a new teacher steps in. Young, charming, and underestimated. But when bullies push her to the edge, they unleash a storm they never saw coming. In just 1 minute, they're begging for mercy. Want to know how she turned the tables? Subscribe for epic stories that flip the script on power and payback. The first day of school at Westbridge High was always a circus, but for Mia Harper, it was more like stepping into a lion's den with a smile. At 25, she was the youngest teacher ever hired at this rough-around-the-edges public school, known for its graffiti strez, and students who treated authority like a punching bag. Mia, with her warm hazel eyes, cascade of chestnut hair, and a wardrobe that screamed, "I'm approachable but professional," walked into room 204 with a quiet confidence that made the students pause for about 10 seconds. The classroom was a mix of chipped desks, flickering fluorescent lights, and 32 teenagers sizing her up like wolves circling prey. She set her leather satchel on the desk, her smile unwavering, and wrote her name on the board. "Ms. Harper." The whispers started immediately. "She looks like she just graduated," one kid muttered. "Bet she cries by lunch," another snickered. At the back, a group of seniors led by Troy Baxter, a broad-shouldered kid with a permanent sneer and a rap sheet of detentions, exchanged smirks. Troy leaned back, arms crossed, already plotting how to make this new teacher's day a living hell. Mia, oblivious to their scheming, began her lesson on "To Kill a Mockingbird," her voice bright and engaging, as if she believed every kid in the room was hanging on her every word. She didn't notice the paper airplane that sailed past her head, or the stifled laughs when it landed in her neatly organized stack of handouts. Troy Baxter was the undisputed king of room 204. He'd been at West Bridge since freshman year, and by senior year, he'd perfected the art of disruption. Tall with a buzz cut and a leather jacket he wore like armor, he commanded loyalty from his crew. Jake, a wiry kid with a quick laugh and a knack for crude drawings. Kayla, whose sharp tongue could cut through steel, and Marcus, a quiet giant who followed Troy's lead without question. They'd driven out 2 substitute teachers last semester. One quit after a week, the other after a particularly creative prank involving a whoopee cushion and superglue. Troy saw Mia as no different. Young, inexperienced, and way too pretty to be taken seriously. "She's going to fold like a cheap lawn chair," he whispered to Jake, who snorted and started doodling a caricature of Mia with exaggerated features. Gayla, flipping her dyed purple hair, added, "Let's see how long she lasts before she's running to the principal." Marcus just nodded, his eyes fixed on Mia as she talked about Scout Finch's courage. The plan was simple. Start small, test her limits, and escalate until she broke. Troy flicked a crumpled paper ball at the board, missing Mia's head by inches. She didn't flinch, just kept talking about Atticus Finch's moral backbone. The class murmured, impressed or annoyed. It was hard to tell. Troy wasn't deterred. He leaned over to Jake and whispered, "Next one's going to hit her." Mia wasn't blind. She'd grown up in a neighborhood not unlike West Bridges, where survival meant reading the room before someone read you. She'd seen Troy's type before, cocky, desperate to prove something, hiding insecurity behind bravado. She'd clocked his crew the moment she walked in: Jake's fidgety energy, Kayla's eye rolls, Marcus' silent loyalty. She knew they were testing her, and she was ready. Not because she'd studied classroom management in her teaching program, though she had acing every course, but because Mia Harper had a past that Westbridge High couldn't begin to guess at. She'd been a foster kid, bouncing between homes, learning to navigate tempers and power plays by the time she was 10. She talked her way out of fights, charmed her way into second chances, and once at 16 stared down a gang leader who thought he could intimidate her into giving up her bus fare. That fire still burned in her, hidden beneath her soft cardigans and warm smiles. So when the second paper ball grazed her shoulder, she didn't react the way Troy expected. She didn't yell or blush or stammer. Instead, she paused mid-sentence, picked up the paper, and unfolded it with the calm precision of a surgeon. Inside was a crude note. "Nice skirt, teach wanted detention." The class held its breath, waiting for tears or a scolding. Mia just smiled, a glint in her eyes that Troy didn't catch. "Creative," she said, holding up the note, "but if you're going to throw shade, at least spell detention right." The class erupted in laughter and Troy's smirk faltered. The rest of the period was a chess game. Troy's crew up the ante. Jake accidentally dropped his textbook with a deafening thud. Kayla asked a deliberately dumb question about whether Scout was a boy or a girl. Marcus coughed loudly every time Mia turned to the board. Mia didn't miss a beat. She answered Kayla's question with a detailed breakdown of Scout's character, turning it into a mini lecture on gender roles in literature that left Kayla speechless. When Jake's book hit the floor, she walked over, picked it up, and handed it back with a look that said, "I see you, Marcus's coughing fits." She offered him a bottle of water from her bag, a tone so kind mocking. The other students, sensing something new, started paying attention. Mia's lesson wasn't just about a book, it was a performance. She moved through the room like she owned it, her voice steady, her eyes catching every flicker of defiance. By the bell, Troy was seething. She hadn't cracked. Worse, she'd made him look small without raising her voice. As the class filed out, he muttered to his crew, "Tomorrow we go harder." Day 2 was when things escalated. Troy had spent the night texting his crew, planning a prank that would cement his legend. The idea was simple but brutal. A rigged water bottle that would drench me when she opened it, paired with a fake love letter slipped onto her desk to humiliate her further. Jake had crafted the letter full of over-the-top flattery and a fake signature from your secret admirer, Troy. Kayla added a touch of glitter to the envelope for maximum embarrassment. Marcus, ever the muscle, was tasked with swapping Mia's water bottle with the rigged one during the morning chaos. By the time Mia walked into room 204, the trap was set. She wore a navy blazer and a cream blouse, her hair pulled back in a low bun, looking every bit the professional, despite the faint circles under her eyes from grading papers late. The class was quieter today, sensing the tension. Troy leaned back, smirking as Mia set her bag down and reached for the water bottle. The room went silent. She twisted the cap and water exploded upwards, soaking her blouse and dripping onto the floor. The class gasped, then laughed, a nervous edge to it. Troy's crew high-fived under the desks. Mia stood there drenched, her face unreadable. Then she did something no one expected. She laughed, not a nervous giggle, but a full, rich laugh that filled the room. "Well," she said, wiping water from her chin, "I guess someone's feeling creative today." The laughter died down, replaced by confusion. Mia didn't scream or run out. Instead, she grabbed a stack of paper towels from a cabinet. How did she even know they were there? And started blotting her blouse. "Let's talk about creativity," she said, her voice calm but carrying an edge. "Because whoever did this put in some effort, planning, execution, teamwork. That's potential. Misguided, but potential." She tossed the soap towels into the trash and picked up the glittery envelope from her desk. Troy's stomach dropped. She opened it, read the fake love letter aloud, her tone dripping with amusement. "Your beauty lights up the room, Miss Harper. Wow, poetic, but the handwriting looks familiar." She held up the letter, her eyes locking onto Jake's. He froze. "Jake, your doodles have the same sloppy loops." "Care to explain?" Jake stammered, his face red. But before he could answer, Mia turned to the class. "Here's the thing about pranks," she said. "They're only funny if you're smarter than your target. And I'm not sure you are." That's when Troy made his mistake. He couldn't let her win, not in front of his crew, not in front of the class. He stood up, towering over his desk, and sneered, "You think you're tough, new girl? You're just a substitute with a degree. Sit down and teach your stupid book." The room went dead silent. Even his crew looked uneasy. Mia didn't flinch. She walked toward Troy, her heels clicking on the linoleum until she was standing right in front of him. She was a foot shorter, but the way she held herself made him feel small. "Troy Baxter," she said, her voice low and steady. "I know your type. You think you run this place because you're loud and people are scared, but you're not scary, you're predictable." She leaned in just enough to make him flinch. "And I'm not your substitute, I'm your teacher, so let's make a deal. You can keep trying to push me or you can sit down and learn something. Your choice. But choose fast because I'm done playing." The class was frozen, eyes darting between Troy and Mia. Troy's jaw clenched, his fists bowled at his sides. He wanted to push back, to say something cutting, but her eyes, those sharp, unflinching hazel eyes, pinned him in place. He'd never been called out like that. Not by a teacher, not by anyone. And then Mia did something that broke him. She turned away, dismissing him like he was nothing, and picked up her copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. Page 47, she said to the class. Let's talk about courage. Troy sat down, his face burning, his crew silent. Kayla whispered, "What just happened?" Jake stared at his desk, avoiding Mia's gaze. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, his loyalty wavering. The prank had backfired, and Mia hadn't raised her voice or sent anyone to the principal. She'd won without breaking a sweat. The next 60 seconds were a blur. Troy, still reeling, tried to salvage his pride. He muttered under his breath, loud enough for the class to hear, "This ain't over, teach." Mia stopped writing on the board, turned, and fixed him with a look that could have cut glass. "Oh, it's over, Troy," she said. "Unless you want to explain to the principal why you're wasting everyone's time. Or maybe you'd rather explain it to me right now." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "I grew up in places tougher than this school kid. I've dealt with bigger bullies than you, and I'm still here. So what's it going to be? You want to keep digging, or you want to try being something other than a cliché?" The class was silent, the air thick with tension. Troy's bravado cracked. He looked at his crew, but they wouldn't meet his eyes. Jake was doodling furiously. Kayla was inspecting her nails, and Marcus just stared at the floor. Troy's shoulders slumped. "Sorry," he mumbled, barely audible. Mia raised an eyebrow louder. He cleared his throat, his face red. "I'm sorry, Ms. Harper." The words came out like they'd been pulled with pliers. His crew followed suit, muttering apologies, their voices small and defeated. Mia didn't gloat. She nodded, turned back to the board, and continued her lesson as if nothing had happened. The class was riveted now, not because of the book, but because of her. She'd taken the worst room 204 could throw, water, glitter, insults, and turned it into a masterclass on control. By the end of the period, students were actually raising their hands, asking questions about Scout and Atecus, drawn in by Mia's passion and unshakable calm. Troy didn't say another word, but his eyes followed her, a mix of resentment and respect. His crew was quieter too, their usual swagger gone. When the bell rang, Mia called out, "Troy, Jake, Kayla, Marcus, stay back." The four froze, expecting detention or worse. The rest of the class filed out, whispering about the showdown. Mia waited until the room was empty, then sat on the edge of her desk looking at them. "You've got potential," she said, "all of you, but you're wasting it on cheap shots. You want to be leaders. Lead with something better than pranks and attitude. I'm here all year. You decide how this goes." She dismissed them with a nod, and they shuffled out, heads down. No longer the untouchable crew they'd been an hour ago. Word spread fast. By lunch, the school was buzzing about the new teacher who'd shut down Troy Baxter without breaking a sweat. Students in other classes started paying attention, curious about this Ms. Harper who didn't play by the usual rules. Teachers in the lounge swapped stories, some skeptical, others impressed. Mia, meanwhile, ate her sandwich in the staff room, gratting papers, her blouse still slightly damp but her smile intact. She wasn't naive. She knew Troy and his crew might try again. That West BR bridge wasn't a place where respect came easy, but she'd set the tone. She'd shown them she wasn't just a charming 25-year-old with a degree. She was a force forged in tougher fires than they could imagine, and she was here to stay. The bullies had messed with the wrong teacher, and in 1 minute she'd turned their game upside down. They weren't just begging for forgiveness. They were rethinking everything they thought they knew about power. Over the next few weeks, room 204 changed. Troy never fully warmed to Mia, but he stopped challenging her, his defiance replaced by a grudging respect. Jake started turning in homework, his doodles now illustrations for class projects. Kayla's sharp tongue softened, her questions in class becoming genuine. Marcus, the quiet one, surprised everyone by writing a thoughtful essay on Atecus Finch that earned him the first day of his high school career. Mia didn't gloat or single them out. She taught, she listened, she pushed. She brought in guest speakers, organized debates, and even let the class choose a novel for the next unit. West BR Bridge High wasn't a fairy tale. Fights still broke, and graffiti still appeared, but Mia's classroom became a strange kind of haven. Students who'd never cared about books started reading. Kids who'd felt invisible started speaking up, and Mia, with her quick wit and unshakable calm, became a legend in her own right. Not because she was charming or young or pretty, but because she'd walked into the lion's den and made the lion sit down and listen.